economists are concerned that load shedding is driving South Africa towards a recession. Eskom has announced that it's considering permanent load shedding for the next 24 months. So what impact will this have on our economy? To unpack this further, we're joined this morning by NEDLAC's Community Constituency Head, Thulani Tshefuta, joins us via our video link this morning. Thulani, it's great to see you. Thanks very much indeed for coming on. I mean, that's sort of an obvious question, isn't it? How do we attract investment to a country that can't guarantee power?
Good morning, and good morning to the viewers of Newzroom Afrika, and thank you very much for this opportunity. We can just confirm that in the afternoon of Friday, the 20th of January, we led a delegation of civil society organizations that met with the President of the Republic, His Excellency President Ramaphosa, which meeting was also attended by some ministers and the board and executives of Eskom. The first thing we raised in that meeting was that the positioning of energy is so central in our discourse such that it stands in the middle. On one side, it can be a critical enabler of attracting investments, promoting growth, and thereby leading into job creation and employment. On the other side, as things are now, the same energy that could be a critical enabler is being rendered as a binding constraint. So there is absolutely no question about attracting investments, growing the economy, leading to job creation without energy. So there is no way in which you can achieve that without energy. It is a central part of that.
Thulani, is there a scenario where this could be a good thing? What I mean by that is, and it was touched on by the Eskom board chairperson yesterday as well, to give some predictability to the energy crisis we find ourselves in.
What we have argued is that we are calling for honesty on the depth of the challenges that we are confronted with. And this honesty must move from the premise that as things are now, the energy crisis has been deepening and worsening. Despite several commitments, despite several promises, despite several assurances, despite several efforts. And so it means that that which we have been planning and promising to do has not been working. That honesty must come from the point of saying, this is the depth of the crisis that we are confronted with, and what will it take for us to address this challenge? And in that, society must be taken into confidence in appreciating what do we have to compromise in order for us to address this challenge, such that when we make those trade-offs and compromises, we know that when we address this challenge, it shall be addressed once and for all. And most importantly, one of the things that we even brought to the attention of the President is that at some point previously, the articulation about the impact of load shedding has been limited to the impact of load shedding on jobs, the impact of load shedding on the economy, the impact of load shedding on businesses. We have introduced a significant factor as civil society, which begins to suggest that on a daily basis in our lives, in households and communities, we are compromised so much to the extent that people lose appliances that are damaged by this on and off load shedding. And no one is going to reimburse households for those appliances. Crime is beginning to be linked by Amapara to the load shedding times. When there is load shedding, then they begin to plan their activities. Even for the future of this country, when young people who have to write exams are compromised by load shedding, we are eroding that future. And so that is where we stand in terms of the impact of load shedding and what are the compromises that need to be done.
I mean, if you talk, what are the trade-offs? What is the impact? Who are the people that will ultimately pay the price? The answer to that, it will be the poorest of the poor here in South Africa. The cost of foodstuffs will go up. Farmers have already said that they also face a crisis insofar as their crops are concerned. it's the people who can't afford it who will ultimately pay the price for the power crisis that we're in.
Pretty much. I am glad that, and with confidence I can say, you are actually quoting us. And in our articulation, our view is that this load shedding, in real time, immediately, without any delay, has knock-on effects on food prices and making matters worse and exacerbating the already high cost of living. And to that regard, we have proposed some measures to cushion the poorest of the poor, including considering with immediate effect the zero rating of some categories of food, basic foodstuff, for an extended period until we address this challenge of load shedding. We have proposed some consideration of increasing social grants by food inflation such that we can cushion the poor. We have even proposed that to address the energy poverty that South Africa is confronted with, government must consider sponsoring as part of service delivery the rooftop solar panels for the poorest of the poor, so that as those who are rich and can afford are able to buy these facilities for themselves, we provide for the poor such that they also benefit for these other varied sources of energy. Those are the views that we presented to the President, the ministers, and the board of ESCOM that we met with on Friday.
And when will they give you feedback on those proposals, Thulani?
On the proposals we have presented, we emerged with a commitment of at least making sure that from the side of the minister that is responsible for the utility and the board of ESCOM itself, there will be continuous feedback sessions, especially with structures of civil society that are not even represented in the board of ESCOM, that could have used that opportunity to feed back to as reporting mechanism. So we have agreed that we'll work out a mechanism that will give us that opportunity of keeping on, not only awaiting feedback from them, but raising proposals as part of the solution in addressing this, including, by the way, continuous frustration that we face in communities. And so we expect that in no less than on a quarterly basis, we should be having those engagements.
Yeah. And then, of course, on the sidelines of that, Thulani, is another important factor, and that will kick in from the 1st of April. It's that increase granted to ESCOM by NERSA of almost 19%.
We have unequivocally expressed our frustration and our disagreement with that increment. What we view the increment as is being very insensitive to the already high cost of living in South Africa. It flies in the face of a campaign that we wanted to mount in our communities in terms of encouraging people to pay for the services that they are getting on one side, but making sure that systems for free basic electricity and the indigent services work so well that those who cannot afford are provided for. And it is only in that way that those who can afford but are not paying for their services will be caught up. But it is an insult. It adds salt to injury to say people must pay, even at an increased rate, the services that they are not getting. It does not make sense. We are not getting the best of the services we should be getting on any day. And therefore, it cannot be that for the same service that we cannot get, we are paying at an increased rate. We have made it clear that the President and his government and everyone else involved and any government agency, including NERSA itself, must go back to the drawing table and be alive to the realities that South Africans are confronted for. Now, they are going to the extent of sucking blood out of our lives, and that can only mean one thing. And therefore, that increment must be camped. It must not happen. It must be alive to the realities that South Africans are confronted.
Thulani Tshefuta is NEDLAC's Community Constituency Head. Strong words there. Thanks very much indeed for joining us this morning. Of course, we're still asking the question, permanent load shedding, what impact will it have on the economy